Hello everybody, MD Polo here at Range USA in Carmel, Indiana. And today we're at the range with a bit of history. We've got a 1911, and this is the M1911A1 by Remington Rand. World War II gun, 43 was produced, 1943. So the gun is 81 years old, and it's in remarkable condition for being 81 years old. Makes you wonder, at least it makes me wonder, what has this gun seen? What has it done? We'll go through it on the tabletop, and we're gonna shoot a mag through it. This makes it, it's so amazing. 7 rounds. Boy, did I blow that one. Seven rounds through the 1943 Remington Rand. I really hope the soldier that had this before had better aim with it than I just did. We'll see at the tabletop. The sights are just awful. But you also have seen me for quite some time now. I'm not the greatest shooter. I can hold my own. This was awful. Turn you around. We're only at 7 yards. Look at this. One up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, so now that one. But you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow. And I was only at 7 yards. 81 years old, the gun. Remington Rand, M1911A1. Awesome piece of history. That's not a piece of history. That's a piece of something else. All right, let's go to the tabletop. And we're back at the tabletop. That was such an amazing experience. It's not often that you get to shoot a handgun that is 81 years old, and especially not one in this condition. So, as I mentioned in the intro at the range, it's a 1943 Remington Rand model 1911A1 U.S. Army. And that is so cool that it's got all those markings. And speaking of markings, I did spend quite a bit of time doing my research on this. However, and disclaimer, I'm not a historian, I'm not an expert, I'm just a regular gun guy that likes to share them with you. So I know there's a lot of you watching that are a lot more knowledgeable than I am. So please let me know if I misspeak on something, if I missed a fact, if you want to correct me. That's what I like to do. I like to learn, but please do so respectfully. And so my favorite part of the channel is my interaction with you, so I look forward to your comments. Also, I made quite a bit of notes here, so if it sounds like I pause or I'm reading, it's because I am. I want to make sure that I give you the best information that I could find. So what is this? Like I said, 1943. It was introduced in early World War II, and it was manufactured by Remington Rand. And the factory was located in Syracuse, New York. And that's part of the markings, and it's period correct. As you will see here, it is not only the typeface is correct, but also that the roll mark is in 2 lines, and it says Remington Rand, Syracuse, New York. So that's pretty cool there. And the firearm has been safety checked, by the way. So as a 1911 is single action 45 ACP. This one only has 1 mag. It's 8 rounds of single stack. We're not sure if, and I'll show it to you, if it's the original mag, because it's got 0 markings on it. Some had a little G on the top of the lips, some had it at the bottom. This one has 0 markings, although it looks to be period correct, and of course is gun correct. The finish on this is Dulite, and it's got a 5-inch barrel. The grips are plastic, and it does also have the short stubby hammer, as you see there. It's got a little bit of texture at the top, and it's got a Singer trigger, which is also correct. The cool part about this, one of the cool things, the camera will catch it there, it says United States property, and it says M1911A1 U.S. Army. So that is uber cool. Let you take a look at it. A couple of things that also tells you that it's an M1911A1, besides the markings, is you can see the cutout, the steel cutout here behind the trigger. You have it on both sides. And you also have the rounded mainspring housing. So a little bit of history on this 1911 is not only the markings, as I mentioned, but after Pearl Harbor, the U.S. government needed to manufacture as many pistols as they could. They were entering the war, and they gave the contracts to a few manufacturers, and some of them were Colt, Ithaca, Remington Rand, Union Switch and Signal, and Singer sewing machine companies. Now, all of these companies were making parts, barrels, frames, slides, everything to make the 1911s. And one of the things they had to do is they had to be interchangeable between each other. And that's one of the things that happened during the war, is they were making them as quickly as they could and just throwing them together, especially after they came back from the battlefield and they had to be refurbished by the military. They were just throwing parts together so they can get them out on the field as quickly as they could. They didn't care if they had a Remington Rand slide with a Colt barrel and a Singer lower. They were just throwing them together. And you can understand why that was happening. So like I said, the parts were interchangeable. These manufacturers, Colt, Ithaca, Remington, Union, and Singer, were given contracts to produce the 1911s. And it was back in 1942, actually March of 1942, the Remington Rand was afforded their contract, and the first contract was for 125,000 M11s, 1911s A1. Now what's interesting is that several of these companies, including Remington Rand, they had no experience whatsoever making firearms. But they just raised their hand and said to the government, we can do it, and they figured out how to do it. Also, some of these companies that were awarded the contracts, they didn't have the tooling, the machining, to do all the parts. So then they would be calling each other and say, hey, Colt, you are making barrels and hammers per se. You know, we need 125,000 of these. Or they were just calling each other, hey, what can you make? Well, I can make this. What can you make? Well, I can make that. And they were making the pistols. One thing that distinguished Remington Rand as the war, went on is that they became known not only for producing them for the U.S. military at the lowest possible price, but they got the, the reputation of also providing the highest quality available. By the end of the war, Remington Rand had produced over 875,000 1911s. And that was almost twice as much as the next highest producer. They were just cranking these guys out. Now this particular sample in front of you, I'm not going to take it apart for obvious reasons, but this particular sample actually has a Colt barrel, which is pretty cool. And this is where a bit of the confusion is, or at least on my part. is because we originally thought that, of course, it's got a Remington Rand slide. We thought we know it has a Colt barrel, but we thought it also had a Colt lower. That is until I started digging into the markings. And as you can see here, it says, let's see if I can get it to focus here. You see right here where it says M1911A1. According to the research that I was able to find, is whenever there's a space, like it is right here, under the, I'm not sure if it's focusing correctly, but the M, and then it says 1911, and then space A1. This would indicate that it is not a Colt lower, but it is a Union switching signal lower. Because apparently the Colt lowers did not have spaces between there. Come on, focus. Maybe I'm a little too close. The Colt lower would have M1911A1 all together. So that would indicate, like I said, a Union switching signal lower. But then another thing here is you see where it says the serial number. You see how it has the N with a number with a little o underlined with the underscore. This apparently would indicate a Colt lower, because if it was not, a Colt lower, then it would just say N-O with a big O, not with a small o with the underscore. So if I'm correct in what I found, this would indicate a Colt lower, but the markings here indicate a Union signal lower. So maybe you guys can help me out with that. What do you think? Am I reading it wrong? And what do you think this is? Another cool thing about this is the other markings that it has. Not only it has the correct P right here, proof mark, but it has it on top of the slide, right there as it should. So that's pretty cool. The other markings, to me, are even more interesting than that. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to catch it in the light. But it says right here, right there, RCD, Robert Charlie Delta. And RCD are the initials for Lieutenant Colonel Robert C. Downey. And Lieutenant Colonel Downey was the district procurement officer for the U.S. Army in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In 1943, he was promoted to district chief in December 1943. He was promoted to district chief. And in essence, even though he, of course, never touched this gun, he's the one that was responsible for the procurement of firearms in his district for the U.S. Army. So just like a dollar bill has the signature of the Secretary of Treasury, and anytime there's a new Secretary of Treasury, the signature changes on the dollar bills, it's the same type of thing with this proof mark here for Lieutenant Colonel Robert C. Downey. So that I thought was very interesting. And then there's another proof mark on this side. And let's see, this one's going to be a little bit harder to see, but it's right there. And it says RIA. Okay, so RIA. And what that stands for is for Rock Island Arsenal. Rock Island Arsenal. Also, it says Rock Island Arsenal / San Antonio Arsenal. And this is correct also, and it's where it is under the serial number. And what that means is that this gun at some point, it was out on service, it was out on the war, on the field, and eventually it made it back to the for military servicing, refurbishing. And that's where they would just, if a gun was broken, if it was the soldier died or went home, whatever happened, that the gun came back from the field, they were refurbished, and they had several different refurbishing stations around the country. And that's when, if the slide was broken, they would just throw another slide on it and off it goes. Whatever it needed, they would just grab from buckets or containers of parts, put it all together, and send it out to the field as quickly as possible. So those are two pretty cool markings on this gun. Not only it's got the marking here of the serial number, the number, then it's got the U.S. property, M1911A1, U.S. Army. It's got the proof mark here of Rock Island Arsenal after their refurbishment. And on the other side, it's got the initials for Lieutenant Colonel Robert C. Downey for the procurement, I have problems with that word, of this firearm. And it's got the proof mark here and here. So I thought that was pretty cool. You know, just standard, nothing really sights, as you can see there. And the mag that I mentioned earlier, we don't know if it's correct or not as far as original to the gun, but it's got 0 markings. They normally would have a marking up here or a marking up here on the lip, and this one has none. But obviously it works, and to the photos that I've seen online, they all look like this. So this would be the correct mag, but this one has no markings at all. The controls, as you can see there, they're correct. They've got the textured on both of them. The texture matches on both of them. Although the steel on this part, I'm not sure if the lights are too bright, but it looks newer than the rest of the gun. But it's correct the way it is shaped and the way it is textured. Let's just see the barrel. So there it is, my friends. Not so quick, and probably 3rd grade level review as far as knowledge and content. But a pretty cool piece of history. A pistol that more than likely was actually in the battlefield of World War II. And my assumption is that it was, because otherwise it would not have the markings of being refurbished at a military facility. 1943, World War II model of the Remington Rand 1911A1 U.S. Army. So please let me know what you think of this, and prices. Somebody's going to ask me about prices before I say goodbye. It depends. It depends on if everything is period correct. It depends on the markings. It depends on the condition, what comes with it. So prices are all over the place, but what I was able to find out is from private sales, they've been going anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 in this condition. Recently, there was one sold in similar condition, actually, from the photos that I saw. The magazine did have the markings that it was supposed to have, both at the bottom and on the top of the lip. This one does not. But that one sold at the Rock Island auction for $8,225. That was the hammer price. So they're all over the place, but awesome, awesome part of history. So please let me know in the comment sections, what do you think about this? What are your experience? What did I say wrong? What can you add to the video? I very much appreciate it and look forward to that. Please remember that I upload videos every Friday morning, and when I can on Wednesday mornings as well. I'm active on Instagram, less now because I'm tired of their censorship, so I've been posting a lot more over on X or Twitter, whatever it's called. So please give me a follow there. We're on our way to 20,000 subscribers. So if you like what I do, you enjoy the content, the way you can help me is by clicking the subscribe button and the notifications. All right, thank you very much for stopping by, and until the next time, God bless.